Shalom. Good morning, good evening, good day, happy tomorrow. So, today I'm going to be dealing with a very important issue. Many of the people who uh, just throw out the New Testament without properly being secure in Yahweh, you end up completely abandoning Him and going to secular humanism. And I've seen it happen so many times that I feel this is an important issue to raise. I don't want to be the cause of you going to secular humanism. I don't want to be in support of it. I don't want you to think I'm in support of it. I'm not. And what they teach is natural law. Natural law in philosophy is a system of right or justice held to be common to all humans. So this is this is the philosophical problem, right? The Torah isn't common to all humans, and this is the claim of the New Covenant, the New Testament, right? That, now that He's come, He's died, that the law is now common to all humans. Well, it's not. But neither is this philosophy of natural law. I mean, you just need to look at the 20th century to see that this is a completely decrepit idea and derived from nature rather than the rules of society or positive law. I thought this was really interesting. Where's this derived from? Is it derived from the Creator? No, it's derived from the creation, nature. So check this comment out. Prophetic Carl Nathaniel on Facebook. I had to look up the word theophagy, and theophagy means to consume the flesh of God. It's not in my Bible. I have read the Bible cover to cover. The law of Moses, the Levitical priesthood laws, are obsolete. And I dealt with that in my comment here, noting that Torah 3 times says it's an everlasting covenant, except to the extent that they are laws of nature or repeated in the New Testament. Is this the standard of Torah? That the Torah has to be a law of nature? And this is the interesting thing, this is why I named the video what I did. When you abandon Torah, you go to natural law. What is natural law? It's what the New Testament teaches. You've just taken the human sacrifice portion, the theophagy portion, and placed it over here on the shelf. But you believe the same thing, that natural law dictates right and wrong. You worship creation instead of the Creator, rather than from the rules of society or positive law. Early formulations of the concept of natural law. There have been several disagreements over the meaning of natural law and its relation to positive law. Aristotle held that there was just by nature was not always the same as just by law, that there was natural justice valid everywhere with the same force. Why? What in creation, if you take out the Torah, like completely remove it, you say what Paul says, until the law was, sin was in the world, but sin was not imputed where there is no law, right? And this is Paul's solution to deal with sin, is to get rid of the law, to call the law sin. 1 Corinthians 3, right? 2 Corinthians 3, what does he say? Who also made us able ministers of the New Testament, not of the letter. What's the letter? The written Torah, the Kitab Sefer Torah, but of the Spirit, turning to nature, the guide of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. Natural law at its best. Not existing by people's thinking this or that. But this is exactly what natural law boils down to. If you take out the Torah, if you take out the Creator, what do you get? 40,000 denominations based on the same text. people appealing to their inner nature, their created state, instead of God. Like, in the 20th century, there were many men who, throughout all religion, and were saying the same thing we see you saying, and what do? They went and killed millions of people for their God of natural law. Who was the biggest mass murderer in the history of the world? Most probably assume the answer is Adolf Hitler, who also actually was not religious. He was a Marxist and an atheist. He also appealed to the natural law that Germans were the mightiest race. Others might guess Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin, who killed 45 million Ukrainians because of his natural law, who may indeed have managed to kill even more innocent people than Hitler did, many of them part of the terror famine that likely took more lives than the Holocaust. But both Hitler and Stalin were outdone by Mao Zedong. From 1958 to 1962, his Great Leap Forward policy led to the deaths of up to 45 million people. And I think it was even more than that, honestly. I think it was upwards to 80 million. 80 million by him, 45 million by Stalin, easily 12 million by Hitler. And you're talking like 150 million people just murdered because they didn't fear God. Because they appealed to man's natural law. So let's look at Mr. Shaul now. Galatians 5:16. So I say to you, let the Holy Spirit guide your lives. Then you won't be doing what your sinful nature craves. And this is the appeal to the natural law. And look at 1 Corinthians 11. Doth not even nature itself teach you that if a man hath long hair, it is shame to him? Does nature teach that? Creation doesn't teach that. Look, lions are males and have long hair. But Paul is appealing to the philosophy of natural law. He is speaking against the written Torah that's inspired by Yahweh and appealing to creation as the guide. But as we see here, creation alone is not enough to stop atrocity. It's not. Natural law didn't stop Mao Zedong from killing 45 million people. Natural law doesn't stop. And this just happened 10 days ago. A San Antonio mother arrested after a near drowning incident, left child in running bathtub. Why didn't the natural law appeal to her inner person and stop her from doing this atrocity? And if you appeal only to natural law, why is the civil law wrong to charge her? You want to appeal to something, creation, right? What's common in nature, in creation, is infanticide. Does this primate, which the secular humanists believe is the forebear of man, does this primate naturally know that murder of an infant, of an innocent one, is wrong? No. They murder the babies of other men. Nature does not point to right and wrong. It points to something far more sinister. And this is so important to understand. Without the God of Yahweh, you're under the God of creation. And that the creation is no longer in its perfect state. It's not. And so you're appealing to a fallen world that needs to be restored. Might makes right. This is what natural law is. This is what we see in Mao Zedong. It's what we see in the woman taking advantage of her infant. It's what we see in the apes, in the created world of other creatures besides man. Might makes right. That's natural law. Might makes right, or might is right, is an aphorism of the origin of morality with both descriptive and prescriptive senses. Descriptively, it asserts that society's view of right and wrong is determined by those in power, with a meaning similar to histories written by the victors. That is, although all people have their personal ideas of good, only those strong enough to overcome obstacles and enemies can put their ideas into effect and spread their own standards to a society at large. Montague defined kratokracy and catocracy from ancient Greek, kratos, might or strength, as a government based on coercive power by those strong enough to seize control through physical violence or demagogic manipulation. Why is this wrong if you appeal to creation? This is the history of mankind. I mean, do you not study history? When people who don't fear Yahweh are given power, they use that power to coerce other people to do what they want. But this is not the will of Yahweh. Why is murder wrong? Honestly, why is adultery wrong? And I've had people that used to be good friends on this journey tell me that adultery and pornography are not wrong. They appeal to their inner man, their God of nature. What do I mean, their inner man? Well, you have to understand our heart. And this is something that is so important to understand. Your inner man is very, very deceived. Genesis 8:21. Yahweh smiled the soothing aroma, and Yahweh said to himself, I will never again curse the ground because of man, for the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth. And you tell someone that, they don't believe you. Like, well, that's not true. My heart's not wicked. Oh, did you completely miss how, like, this happens all of the time? All of the time. Pennsylvania mother strangled son so he wouldn't face family's financial troubles. That's mother and son killed by an alleged drunk driver. Minnesota woman convicted of killing her 6-year-old son just days after regaining full custody of him. This happens all of the time. All of the time. Natural law does not stop these people from committing wicked acts. Well, you say, well, the Torah doesn't either, which I've heard. Right? Well, yeah, the Torah doesn't stop them from committing evil acts either, right? So the natural law is purely superior. Yeah. No, the Torah has to be applied. If you have a dirty floor and you let nature take over, guess what's going to happen? It's going to get dirtier. If you don't sweep the floor, apply soap, and mop the floor, it's going to stay dirty. The Torah is not something that just happens. And this is the problem that I didn't know I was going to get into, but Father's leading me here. Prayer warriors are meaningless. You can spend all day in prayer, but if you're not applying what you get from the Torah, you're just letting the floor get dirty. You're just letting your heart remain wicked and just distracting it with meaningless repetition of rote statements. Torah is application. It doesn't just automatically happen. And let's go to another passage that really hammers this home. The heart is more deceitful than all else. And you say either I agree, or you say, oh, I appeal to natural law. Our heart is not deceitful. Really? So, this woman was operating in a heart that didn't deceive her to kill her son. The little boy that came from her own flesh and is desperately sick. Who can know it? I, Yahweh, search the heart. I test the inmost being, even to give to each man according to his ways and according to the fruit of his deeds. It doesn't matter what you believe because your heart is deceived. It matters what you do. That's what Torah is. Torah is application. It's not thinking. This is a New Testament philosophy because it comes from Greek Hellenism. Philosophy is all about what we think, what we believe in our heart. But Yahweh, the Torah, is about what you do. It's about doing what's right. And a perfect example of this, is, you shall not afflict any widow or orphan, right? Well, if I pray and send them on their way, they're okay. Well, right. That's perfectly fine. And, and I'll go to the book of James for that because some of you still are there, right? And he is a tree of knowledge of good and evil, but he says some things that really sum up the truth. For if a man comes to you into your assembly with a gold ring and dressed in bright clothes, and there also comes in a poor man in dirty clothes, and you pay special attention to the one who is wearing the bright clothes, and say to him, you sit here in a good place, and you say to the poor man, you stand over there or sit down by my footstool, have you not made distinctions among yourselves and become the judges of evil thoughts? And, a lot of people take this too far, and because they don't know Torah, but, you aren't supposed to show partiality. You shall not show partiality in judgment. You shall hear the small and the great alike. So if someone's poor comes to you, you aren't supposed to elevate them to hear them above the rich. And this is a problem with natural law because it appeals to Marxism. For Yahweh, your God, is the God of gods and the Lord of lords, the great and mighty, the fearsome God who does not show partiality nor take a bribe. So your bribe of grace is not going to work before him. Sorry. Exodus 23. You shall not bear a false report. Do not join your hand with a wicked man to be a malicious witness. You shall not follow in the masses in doing evil. This is a perfect appellation against natural law. What does man's heart desire most of all? Not to be an outcast. Not to stand up and say, this is wrong. I'm not going to go with the crowd. Are you going to be like them? That you refuse to join the crowd, to follow your natural man and say, I don't want to be put in the fire for refusing to take the pokey poke. I don't want to stand up for what's right because that will be hard. Of course, there's the video of this man. Everyone else around him is saluting Hitler, but he refused. He didn't care that he was not part of the crowd. He didn't care about the natural man wanting to feel part of something. Even he knew it was wrong and he stood up. Nor shall you testify in a case as to turn aside after the masses in order to cause justice to be turned aside. And this, nor shall you be partial to a poor man in his case. You're not supposed to have unequal weights and measures. And this is what we see with natural law. Like, why is it wrong to not show partiality to a poor man over a rich man according to natural law? You can't answer that question because you have no Torah. Why is it wrong for this woman to take the life of her 6-year-old son? I mean, think about it. All the things that she was saving this little boy from, right? Because you nihilists, you think that this creation is so terrible. We're just continually deceived and it's not worth having children. She was doing this kid a favor, right? So let me read my reply now to Prophetic Carl, because I think this applies to you that believe in natural law as well. Because you are the Ouroboros. You're just going in circles. You're back to Pauline philosophy, rejecting the Torah. I had to look up the word theophagy. Theophagy equals eating God. The idol the New Testament tells you to eat his flesh, to drink his blood. That's John 6. Indoctrinating you to ancient pagan rites, which is, again, that's natural law. You want to talk to your dead relatives and be part of them, so you eat bread and drink wine and say it's the flesh and blood of your dead relative or the God you worship. I have read the Bible to cover, and many people make this claim. It doesn't matter how many times you read it if your eyes are not open to hear Yahweh. You still believe the New Testament. Exodus 23:7, keep far from a false charge. Do not kill the innocent or righteous, for I will not justify the guilty. He who justifies the wicked, he who condemns the righteous, both of them alike are an abomination to Yahweh. And of course, Paul, Romans 4:5, but the one who does not work, but believes upon him who justifies the ungodly, his faith is counted as righteousness. This is not Yahweh, it's Paul's natural law, that what you think justifies you, not what you do. Why did Paul contradict Torah in the Proverbs that God will justify the wicked with the murder of an innocent man? The law of Moses, the Levitical priesthood, are obsolete. Nope. And these three passages, Exodus 31:16, Leviticus 24:8, Numbers 18:19, he tells us that this is a perpetual statute, it's an everlasting covenant, that it will never end. You've not read the whole Bible, and this is what I say to a lot of you. You claim to have read the whole Bible, but you still believe lies. And this is the standard. It's not coming from here. It's coming externally. See, what makes the Torah true? What makes it true? It is a supernatural law. It exists outside of creation. It came from the creator of creation. Torah is not natural. It's not natural for man to want to do the things of Torah. Now that will change for those of you that are pursuing covenant with Yahweh, but it's simply not natural. It's not natural to want to obey the Creator. It's not natural to want to bow down to a creator and not bow down to man, like those three men, Everyone else bowed down to the image of a man, but they didn't. They didn't bow down to the image of a man. And made obsolete by what? The bribe of grace and the murder of an innocent man, drinking that man's blood? Except to the extent they are the laws of nature or repeated in the New Testament. And again, they make Yahweh a liar. The Torah is not natural. Deuteronomy 4:2. You shall not add to the word which I am commanding you, nor take away from it, that you may keep the commandments of Yahweh your God that I am commanding you. Psalm 19:7, the Torah of Yahweh is perfect, restoring the soul. The testimony of Yahweh is sure, making wise the simple. And Malachi 4:4, remember the Torah of Moses, my servant, his statutes and judgments I commanded him in Horeb for all Israel. Only one man could keep them. And this is another lie, proving you haven't read the Bible. 2 Kings 18:5-6. He trusted in Yahweh, the God of Israel, so that after him there was none like him among all the kings of Judah, nor among those who were before him. So he clung to Yahweh. He did not turn away from following him, but kept his commandments, which Yahweh had commanded Moses. And this is the example we are to follow. If you are not clinging to Yahweh, if you are not guarding, and it's a better term, guard the commandments, because obviously we can't keep them all in the wilderness. We can't. Guard them, cling to them, learn them, understand that the Creator is giving us supernatural instructions that help our wicked heart to become purified. Even from the New Testament, Luke 1:5-6, in the days of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah of the division of Abijah, and he had a wife from the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth, and they were both righteous in the sight of God. That's a big problem, and it's in the New Testament. It says that they were righteous before the cross. They were righteous. They did what was right. They were blameless. They kept all the commandments. And Zechariah and his wife were blameless in all the righteous requirements of Torah. Yet you still believe the lie that you can't be righteous. Deuteronomy 30:11. For this commandment which I am commanding you today is not too difficult for you, nor is it too far off. If Yahweh made a law we cannot keep, he lied. And he is the sacrificial lamb who takes away the sins of the world. The sacrifice of a man does nothing for the sins of the world. It is murder. That's simple. The same with this mom. She killed an innocent little boy. This innocent little boy did not violate any of Torah. He couldn't. He was only 6 years old. He's not guilty of any sins. And this is the Christian problem. You say that all men are born sinful. That's your wicked heart speaking. It's not true. That's not what God says. Children are not accountable for the sins of their father, and children are not accountable for knowing right and wrong. They're still being taught this thing. They don't have the switch flipped to know. See, the difference between myself and a guy like Vadi Bakum is Vadi teaches that children are vipers in diapers. I teach that they don't know the ways of Yahweh, and they have these natural inclinations to rebel, to blame other people. The natural inclination that we see in Adam. Adam blamed Eve, Eve blamed the serpent, and then their firstborn son, Cain. Cain didn't take personal responsibility for his sin. He deflected it. He blamed God. And this is exactly what original sin does. You blame God, and you expect the scapegoat to take responsibility and make you righteous. And then, for those of you that reject that, what are you left with? Pursuing an internal law when the Torah is external and supernatural? You have no standard of truth. You have no real standard of right and wrong. Only Torah gives us this standard of absolute truth. Otherwise, you'll never be able to tell the left from the right and pursue what is right and to reject what is wrong. You'll continue to be, what? For my people are ignorant fools, they know me not. They are simple-minded children. And see, the children don't know right from wrong. They have no understanding. They are wise to do evil, but to do good they do not know. It's what you do that matters, and what you do has to be guided by a supernatural force. If it's not, then you're just following your heart, like all of the pagans, like Paul teaches you to do. You follow your heart and not God. And that's all I've got. And I don't think anybody's watching right now. Shalom. Have a good day. Have a good week.